Let's see. Let me on, damn it.
It's working though.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the watch party. This one's going to be good today. I hope y'all ready. This one's going to be really, really good. Let me turn this music down. Okay, so what's a God to a non-believer, right? One of my favorite songs ever. One of my favorite lines ever. So what's up, everybody? Welcome to On the Block with Jen. Mark Harris, director Mark Harris is here early today. He's here early today. So today's topic is a hot topic. As you can imagine, we are told never to discuss politics or religion, right? And I happen to discuss everything that we're not supposed to discuss, right? And that's why you love me. We're not supposed to discuss politics or religion, but I'm going to discuss it. So here we are today. So the topic today on the block with Jen is, can religion or belief in God hold you back from a fulfilling life? That is today's topic on the block with Jen. Can religion or belief in God hold you back from a fulfilling life? Now, as you know, I have my theories like everybody else. And I want to say in the beginning, if you want to join the panel, please click the link and come and join us on the panel, or give your opinions on the comments if you feel that you're not camera ready or your house is in chaos right now. Okay. So I also want to ask you to hit watch party on this so you can share it with other people in your circle. Please hit watch party. My watch party, I'm trying to start my watch party, but it's acting funny. I'm going to try one more again. All right, guys. So welcome again. So here are my theories, because I know the first thing people think of, can religion or belief in God hold you back from a fulfilling life? You know, everybody's like, what? My life is greatly fulfilled, and I am happy, and I believe in my God, and, you know, God could never hold me back from X, Y, and Z. So I got a couple theories, and I'm sure Mark Harris will have his, because he's always trying to get cut on the show. So let's get into this, yeah? Shall we? Again, if you want to join the panel, jump in. So my theory of how God and religion can hold you back from a very fulfilling life, and this is just my opinion. Just my opinion. You have your opinion. I'm not trying to convert anybody. You're certainly not going to convert me to being a believer, right? I'm a non-believer, as you know. So here are a couple of my theories. Let's start with relationships. And I'm talking about relationships either romantically or with relatives, right? Some of those relationships are not fulfilling, if we're honest with ourselves. Some of our relationships with our family members, even our parents, some of our romantic relationships, some of our marriages are not fulfilling. But with the instruction of, say, the Bible, God, and religion, you will stay in those relationships, be they toxic or not. You're going to stay in those relationships. Why? Because you have a belief that God said, and the Bible says you have to work these things out, right? Honor thy mother and thy father, no matter how fucking toxic they are. Your duty is to honor thy mother and thy father, right? If you're in a marriage and you got married via the church and through religious vows, you are not supposed to get divorced. It is a sin, literally, okay? It is a sin. So therefore, you are going to stay in that marriage or in that relationship, right? You're going to stay there because religion says so, and God says that's what you should be doing. So that's one of the ways I think that you won't be living your whole life and be completely fulfilled, because you're following this very strict order from the Bible or God or whoever it is that you pray to or worship. And we don't really think about that because we think that's how things are supposed to be, right? If it's in the Bible, that's what my mama said, that's how it's going to be. Never thinking, can I be happier than this? Can my life be more fulfilling than this? Like, we don't question those things. We just go by the good book, and that's that. Another thing, we've all heard the saying, faith without works is dead, right? My question to religious people, and for the record, this is not just Christians. I know every time the subject of religion comes up, Christians come out swinging because Christians think they're the only religion on planet Earth. We all know there are 4,000 plus religions and sub-religions and, many religions and religions that were taken from the main religions. There are 4,000 plus religions worldwide. So no, Christians, you're not the only God-fearing people on earth. There's just a lot of you in America, right? But you're not the only religion that that believes in a God or a Jesus or whatever. There are a lot of religions. So this isn't strictly me talking to Christians. This isn't Jen versus Christians, right? This is religion and God in general. So, we've all heard the saying, faith without works is dead. My question is always, what are you praying for if you don't get up off your ass and you go do what you have to do? You're not going to get what you're praying for anyway. And people justify it by saying, well, faith without works is dead. So then it's like, well, then you have to define faith for me, because if I'm having faith and an entity is going to do something for me, what the fuck am I working for, right? It kind of like doesn't make sense logically, right? If I tell you I'm going to give you something and I'm going to give it to you, you're going to expect me to give it to you. You're not going to expect to work for it, right? So faith without works is dead. So it's like, well, you kind of can have works without that faith, right? My opinion. Again, these are my opinions. You can rebut. You can join the panel. You can say whatever you want. Just my opinions, right? There's also this constant relying on this source, this religion, this God to provide for you. It can be anything from, please, I want a better job. Please bring me the man of my dreams. Please bring me the woman of my dreams. Please bring me somebody God-fearing. And when you rely on something continuously and subconsciously, you don't go out and get it, right? Which goes back to faith without works is dead, right? But if you have all this faith, you're going to halfway work for what it is you want, in my opinion, because you're waiting for this God to come down and it's like, nah, I'm going to hook you up. Okay, I'm going to hook you up. You keep asking me, I'm going to hook you up, right? So that's another way. A lot of people say, well, I believe in God. I don't believe in religion. I am not religious. I belong to no church. I believe in God. I believe in God, and that's it. And there's a God, and there's a higher power, and that's it, right? That's another way. So I think that you're trying to get away with, and it's based on fear. I think you're trying to get away from religion, but keep your God, your sky daddy. You're trying to keep that entity in the sky that takes care of you without being criticized for being religious. But you learned of a God through religion. When we were born, we are blank slates. There is nothing in the computer. There's nothing in the computer, right? And then people tell you there's a God and you have to have this fear of God. So what you do is, because religion is very, 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 very much critiqued all the time and bashed, what you did was cookie cut it. You was like, well, I'm going to get out of religion, but I'm going to keep this God that religion gave me. So another thing I don't understand is, maybe you can help me, religious folks, help me understand, how is it that God comes from religion, but you want to drop religion and just keep the God? How? When God came from the religion you learned from. So it's kind of like, are you cookie cutting your God or religion to suit your life? So those are just some examples that I think will stop you, prevent you, stifle you from living a very, very fulfilling life, because you're constantly looking to this thing, this entity, this religion, this tradition to tell you how to live, who to put up with, when to turn the other cheek. And that's another issue I have. Sometimes we take a lot of abuse from people, be it at work, at home, because we must turn the other cheek, right? So that's another way you're not living a fulfilling life. Those are my opinions. So if you guys want to comment, I'd love to hear it. And if you want to come on the panel, I'd love to hear it. We're all friends here. Don't be afraid. No one's going to convert anybody today. We're just sharing opinions. And I gave you mine. And I can look through the comments if there are any. And Mark Harris, you can give your opinion, because I got more.
Yeah,
I got more.
So surprisingly, most of the things you just said, I believe it. I believe mostly like 90% of what you just said. Here's what I disagree with. When you say God comes out of religion,
yes,
I disagree with that. And also, Also, most people believe when you talk about God, most people believe I'm not gonna say most people because most people on the planet Earth don't believe it, but most of the main religions believe, whether it's Orthodox Islam, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Judaism, they believe that God is some entity or some spirit that's in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
I do not believe that at all. You and I had this conversation. We had this conversation here on this platform before, in terms of who I believe who God is. Meaning that, and I gave you the example. You know, when we talk about God, people say, "Well, you say that is an entity in the sky." I don't believe that. So when you look at the word God, right? Mm-hmm. God means force and power. What do I mean when I say force and power, right? So, like when you say force and power, when you say force and power, and I give you an example. When I give you an example, meaning that if you look at, we talked about this before. If you look at basketball today, I'm just using basketball as sports as an example, because most people can relate to sports, right? So if you look at LeBron James, and LeBron James has mastered basketball, and he would be considered in this day and time the greatest that's playing today, right? So he would be the god of basketball. Would you say that?
No.
Why wouldn't he be the god of basketball?
Because we had this discussion before, and I'm glad that we're bringing it up again. I don't think he's the god of basketball. I think the word God, if you say LeBron James is a god of basketball, I think you're using the word God too loosely, because he's just good at what he does.
Okay. Right? Let me ask you this.
Let's look at IT workers in the office, right? There are 5 guys that work IT, right? And one of them is better than the other 4. Are we going to call him the god of IT?
Right. So let's just say if you take all IT workers across the planet, right? Mm-hmm. And if you find that one who has mastered that field and mastered it better than all the other IT workers across the planet, that IT worker will be the god in that field. So do you believe? And I'm sure I don't know but do you believe that there could be more than one God?
Well, I don't believe in gods at all.
You don't believe in gods at all?
I don't believe in gods at all. So I'm the worst person to ask, but I don't believe in gods at all. I do believe that there are a lot of icons. There are a lot of people that are worshipped for no fucking reason other than they're skilled at something.
What is your understanding? What is your understanding, or when you say God, what do you mean when you say God? What is your understanding of God? The word God.
Okay, I think that people think God is this. The majority of people think God is an entity in the sky.
What do you think?
I don't think God exists. I can tell you what I think other people say God is. He doesn't exist to me, right? It's a word in a dictionary to me. Okay. But I can tell you what other people think it is, or what I've been told since I was a child.
I don't care about what other people think. Okay. I care about what you think. Like, okay. When you think about God, what is your understanding of God? Not what other people think. So what is your understanding? So you're just saying that you believe that God, it's just a word, right? In the dictionary.
I think it's just a word like cup or brush, and then we made it what we wanted it to be. Okay. Right? I think it's a word in the dictionary. It's like, okay, oh, look, brush. And then it's like, now I choose to tell you that this brush means a certain thing. And then I raise you that way. And now you think every time you see a brush, oh, shit, you know what I mean? Something's going to happen. Okay. That's what I think about the word God. I do think that we ourselves are almighty and powerful, the Alpha and the Omega of
That's what I'm getting at. Let's talk now.
I think that we are all, okay, I think that we are our own gods.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about.
In the definition of what people think God is, I think that is us. We are the Alpha and Omega. We have the power to dictate exactly how our life is going to be, with the exception of accidents.
Okay, you have no argument from me right there.
Okay. All right. So, but I want to go back to something you said. Uh-huh. You said that you don't think that God comes from religion? How is that possible?
Because when you look at first of all, when we break down the English language, right? God is English language is a very bastardized language, as you know. It's a mix of different languages, and it's a very new language on the planet. So when we go back to the old languages, the original language, we talk about Aramaic and Arabic, which is Arabic is the most precise mathematical language that there is. So when you're looking at when you're talking about speaking Arabic, when you're talking about God, you're talking about Allah. You know what I'm saying? So Allah is just it's an Arabic word that means God. But God again, God is a English word. So even when you're looking at the term Muslim, right? A Muslim is someone who submits to do the will of God, right? Or to the will of Allah. What is Islam? Islam means submission and to submit. But just because religion, right? Religion, when you're dealing with religion is something that was how can I put it? When you say that it comes from, when you said God comes from religion, so if let's just say when you're looking at people who believe in God, right, the religious people, well, people who believe in God, regardless of if you're religious, spiritual, or what, God cannot have come from religion because when you're looking at the whole creation, people believe that God is the original. He's the original. He's the one who created everything. So if you're looking at that, right? So God created everything. So even before religion was here, you had a God. You had a supreme being. When I say a supreme being, I don't mean no spooky person that's in there. I'm saying someone, because we had to come from somewhere. We had to come from somewhere. We didn't just say abracadabra and we all appeared, right?
Well, how do you know that?
Say it again.
How do you know that? How do you know that we're not basically a different form of mold on the planet? Why do we have to be divinely made and created? Like, how do you know that?
Because you give birth to another human being.
Okay.
And you don't say you don't speak it out and we come into existence. There's a process that has to take place when that has to take place, right? And when
that matches what I said before, that we are our own gods. I create life.
I agree with you.
Really.
I agree with you. When you said that, I said I agree. I totally agree with you with what you said. But I'm saying, let
me ask you this: where on planet Earth were we ever taught about a God without a story to him? Where on planet Earth were we ever taught, hey, there's this thing called God, and he invented the planet, and that's it?
I'm not quite understanding. Because if you were on the planet Earth, everywhere on planet Earth,
God all over the world is taught with a story, a religion. God is.
You freezing up. Listen, hold on, Lex, 1 second. She's coming back. Yeah, are you not, you can't come back in? Oh wow. Okay. We're trying to get it back on. Hold tight. You said what? Uh, no, come. You should be able to come back in directly back in. But don't stop the broadcast because you have to start over. Uh,
Okay.
I'm back, damn it! The devil is a liar. The devil's a liar. I am back.
See, you're talking about force and power. That shows you force and power.
Boom. The devil is a liar, y'all. Okay, let's get this party back on track, damn it. I ain't going nowhere. Okay.
No,
I'm Alpha and Omega.
Okay, so I agree with you on everything you just said. I agree with you 100%.
Okay.
For me right there at all. But I think Girl wants to come in.
I asked you, how on earth did people know of a God without religion? There's always a story tied to every God. God was never given to you without instruction and rules and shit like that. Like no one has ever told somebody God exists. He made all of us. Go on about your happy lives. It was always God exists. He said, do this, don't do this, do this, don't do this, do this with this person, don't do that with that person, do this, don't do that, do this, do that. God was never given to anybody with just Alpha and Omega. He invented us. He invented the sky, the tree, the oceans, the animals, and then go on about your life. It was always attached to instruction and rules.
Okay, check this out. So when you're driving, right, do you stop at a red light?
Yes.
Okay. You don't go past the red light, right? You keep going, right?
Am I late?
No. You just normally driving.
Yes, I stop at the red lights.
Okay, so like whatever you do in life, right?
Uh-huh.
So if you go out and you buy let's just say you go out, you buy a barbecue grill, you're going to read the instructions and stuff like that, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so whatever we do in life, when you discipline yourself as an actress, when you discipline yourself as a radio personality, whatever you do in life, in order to master that thing, you need discipline, right? You need rules, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so even when you have a child, like when your daughter will come in, there were certain rules that your daughter had to follow, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so why would the supreme being? I'm not talking about nothing in the sky, right? Why would the supreme being give us? Make us, according to what it says in the Bible, ye are all gods. Ye are all gods, right? Give us all of this force and all of this power, give us put so much God within us, right? Without giving us some rules and regulations. So even as a God, because you just said it yourself, you are inside of all of us is a God, right? So even as a God, you still need to have some discipline, some rules, some regulations, and some order, and some to follow, right? Even as a God.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So as a God, no matter how God doesn't, as a God, you don't break your own laws, meaning the laws of physics and science and all that kind of stuff. You still need that discipline. You still need that those rules. Okay. So when LeBron is practicing, right? And when a guy on that basketball court, he has to have some type of rules he have to follow, right? When it comes to basketball, he's not gonna just go up there and start stepping. There's rules he have to follow, right? When he's training, there's a regimen he has to go through as he's training, right? To become a god, right? You're a very wise woman. I consider you to be a very wise woman, right? So how did you get that way? Did you get that way by looking at Love and Hip Hop?
I got
you cracked over some books. You listen to some different people. You put your mind through a regiment, through a deep study in order to get where you at in this life, right?
Very much so. I was always in the habit of I loved hanging out, even from like elementary school and junior high school and high school I didn't finish, but I always loved hanging out with people that knew more than me.
Right.
No, so
prepare your message. Right. You becoming a God, right? So again, God is force. God is power. You know what the energy, we talk about energy, the energy, right? Energy. So even when you come in the house, right? You turn on your light, or if your light goes out, if the light, if not the light, what you call it? Who does the light? The energy people. They come and put the light on, right? They say, hey, is the power on? You know what the power is on? The power is that light, that knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. So if you become when you become a master at what you're doing now.
Alert from Google Chrome.
And you're taking down the Tommy Lawrence and the Joe Rogans. The people who are excelled in this game. These people are gods in this game.
Okay, so all right, I understand how you're using the word gods. I get it, right? But again, I don't want to veer off too much from the point that no God was ever given to anybody without a storyline.
What was given to us? What was given to us without a storyline? Name something.
What do you mean? I don't.
Name anything anything in your life, anything that you appreciate, anything that you love, that was given to you, and it have some type of story or meaning behind it. Don't tell me the master for Jin and stuff.
Because I don't really understand the question in a way. Like
you said when God was given to us, right? There was some type of story behind this God,
right?
That was given to us, right?
Instruction, yes. Like do this, don't do that. Love this person, don't love that person. Be like this, be like that. Like every God has his own script and storyline, right? Yeah. Like, I wouldn't have an issue with the theory of God if it ended, if it began and ended at, listen, we didn't get here on our own. There was this entity that invented us all, and he made the trees and the stars and the moon. You know, no God has ever been given to anyone like that. No God has ever been given to anyone like that.
That's not true.
No, what people do is they take the religion out of it, and then they make their God like that in their mind. They cookie cut their God because they don't like the stigma of religion. So in their minds, they start saying, well, I just believe there's a higher power. Like, how did we get here? Like, look at all these beautiful things. They had to come from somewhere. There has to be a God, right? So again, they cookie cut religion to make themselves more comfy with religion. But God is from religion, is my point. God comes from religion. You can't just drop religion.
I'm introducing you to a real live God, a real live human being, not some spook in the sky.
I already know myself. But look at Scott Aaron's point. He said, I've always thought belief in God, but not religion, is kind of a cop-out. It's atheism light. You want to keep the guy nobody can prove does or doesn't exist, but have already admitted defeat for the rest of it. Creationism, Noah's Ark, splitting the Red Sea, etc. I agree with that 1,000%.
Let me just say this. What he just said is that's the point I was trying to make the other day when I hear you and Simeon on. Okay. This is what what Scott is basically saying, right? And he's not here, and I'm not saying the same thing. So what I'm saying is this: I'm saying God is a man. God is a human being. He has flesh and he has blood. He's a supreme being. I mean, But what I'm saying is, but if you take how most Christians believe God to be, and how most Muslims, Orthodox Muslims believe God to be, or Jews believe God to be, right? He's this entity that you can't see. He's this entity that they say that he speaks, but he doesn't have a mouth. He hears, but he doesn't have ears. So there's this invisible entity that you can't even relate to, right? This entity that you can't even see, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So what is the difference between believing in something that you really can't even see or grasp than believing that God just doesn't exist? I mean, I would believe that God doesn't exist. So I would be, if I had to choose between being that God doesn't exist and believing that God is some spirit or some spook in the sky, I would believe that he doesn't exist. But what I'm saying is that God is a human being who possesses wisdom, who possess wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. He represents force and he represents power.
She.
Okay. So give you an example. I'll give you an example. So when you, as an actress, right, when you studying your lines, right, you studying your lines, but you want to be the best that you can be, and you excel. Once you excel into in terms of like, man, she's the greatest actor that ever graced the screen. Mm-hmm. You become the god of the screen. You know what I'm saying? Like
I totally get that. Right. I get that point.
That's you.
I'm looking at the comments. Okay, Joseph Wheeler says, oh, if anybody wants to join the panel, please feel free. We are not here to preach to y'all or not preach to y'all. You can rebut, you can jump on here and give your opinions or your love for God or whatever it is. Yeah.
Atheism is a religion.
No, it's not. although I'm going to address something about atheism. Joseph Wheeler says, I share that to stress that the entire man-woman omnipotent force is a secondary creation to the fact that the word itself at its core is a verb that suggests any action like prayer is God or Godding. Okay, so, okay, somebody said, I can't see all the comments.
You just hit private, then go back to live comments and they'll come up. Because sometimes they get stuck.
Okay, so.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to. I'm sorry, Jen, but I'm trying to.
Okay, so somebody said. You said somebody said atheism is a religion. No, it's not a religion. It's actually lack thereof religion. But I will say that for a while I wasn't comfortable with the label atheist because a lot of atheists can be just as fanatical as religious people, right? Like. They're extremists in atheism too, where it's like they continuously want to convince people that God doesn't exist and it becomes their life's passion. I don't give a fuck what you believe, right? I'm going to speak on my opinion. And I think that people, they get offended that you don't believe, but I don't give a fuck what you believe or what you don't believe. That's your life. And you have to do what gets you through, right? Everybody has to do what gets them through. But what I find interesting is that religious people, and I'm saying religious people in general, so Christians, put down your cross, because every time somebody brings up religion, y'all think it's only about y'all. There's about 4,000 religions worldwide. Y'all are not the only ones that exist. But, you know, they get very, very much offended to even hear that God doesn't exist. That's how, like, wound up their minds are about religion. And I want to, you know what I mean, stick on the topic. Does a belief in God or religion hold you back from living your best life, let's say, right? So when people hear that, they're probably thinking, oh, what does that mean? I have to sin, I have to blah, I have to this, I gotta, you know, fuck around. No, it has absolutely nothing to do with that, which is why I read that list before. It kind of
I have a question for you. So when you talk about your best life, right, are you just referring to a relationship? Because on the list, if I'm not mistaken, most of those were dealing with relationships, whether it's marriage or so forth and so on. Are you just, when you talk about living your best life, right? Mm-hmm. Are you referring to just relationships or?
No, not at all. That was the first thing on the list, like relationships with, you know, in marriage or relationship with your parents or your family members or friends. But I also touched on faith without works is dead, where kind of like you want something, but you're waiting on God to step in for you versus having self-determinism and taking your ass out there and doing it, right? And then, well, of course, faith without works is dead. I can pray all day, but if I don't get up and do it, then it's not going to happen. Then you, in my opinion, then you don't really have faith. You have this imaginary thing going on over here because you just set out your own lips. You have to go work for it or it does not happen. Right? When people say faith without works is dead, I got to get up and I got it. Then you just told yourself in plain English that if you don't get your ass up and out and go do what it is you have to do, it's not going to happen. So why the debate about what God is going to do or not do for you when you just set out your mouth? You have to go work for it. So it's relationships, it's marriage, it's relatives, putting up with relatives, putting up with enemies. You know what I mean? Like, turn the other cheek, love thy enemy, shit like that. Like, to me, that's holding you back from living your best life because now you have these toxic people in your life that God in the Bible told you that you're supposed to put up with.
Yeah, but let me ask you a question.
Your best life.
All right, if you were to give an idea of what is your best life, what would it be? Like, not just you personally, but what is a person's best life?
I would have to use me as an example.
Use yourself as an example.
I would have to use me as an example.
Okay.
So when I say living my best life, I'm very loving. I'm very compassionate. I do my philanthropy. I do my charity work. You know what I mean? I do my donations. I love my family. I'm stellar at communicating. My whole thing is communication can conquer all. I let nothing hold me back. I don't let toxic people in my life. I will not fucking put up with it. If you bring misery to my life, you are gone, because every second to me is precious. So I'm not going to put up with anybody because God or the Bible said turn the other cheek. So I'm literally living my best life. Everything I want to do, I do it. Okay. I have the power to do it. I believe it. I know it. Everything I've always said I wanted, I've gotten, and I'm getting more and more and more. So I feel like I'm living my best life. So I don't want people to take it out of context, because, I've heard people say, well, atheists have no moral code. I have more moral code than most religious people I've met my entire life.
I know a lot of atheists, and most of the atheists I know are very morally correct and very honest.
Very, very, very much so, because it's like we know about cause and effect.
Accountability.
And accountability. There's no excuse. Religious people, the reason why a lot of them are fucked up, you know what I mean? What it is.
I have a question for you too.
The reason why a lot of religious people are fucked up is because only God can judge. No, bitch, I'm gonna judge you right here on this planet. While me and you are still alive, I'm going to judge you. All right. While you're here, asshole. So, when people say that only God, it looks great on a tattoo. It looks great on t-shirts. It looks great on captions. But no, I'm going to judge you right here. And if I'm judging you and I feel like you're a fucked up person, you have to get out of my life. Okay, I'm not going to wait for God to judge you. I'm not going to forgive you and bring you into my home and into my world and into my work and let you make me miserable because God's going to judge you later. That's not going to happen here. I got my own little gavel and I'm going to judge. If you're in my circle, I'm going to judge you. Somebody's coming in. Daryl Muhammad.
Yeah, please. I have a question for you.
You got a question for me?
I have a question for you. So everything.
Where is he? I thought I brought him in. Okay,
come on, Daryl.
Daryl, can you come back in?
So I have a question for you, Jan. So everything that you just gave, right, in terms of living your best life.
I'm living my best life, yes.
Do you think that you're doing that because that's just the way you are as a person, or does it have anything to do with you being an atheist?
I don't think it has. I don't know if they're related. I just think that my life and my idea of how life works just falls into atheism. That's why I said I don't like the label, because I feel atheist by itself has an entirely different meaning.
Let's just take atheism out. Okay, so let me rephrase the question for you.
Okay, rephrase.
Okay, so based off everything that you just gave to us, right? Basically, as far as you living your a full life, right? Mm-hmm. You just take your disbelief or not believing in God, right? Mm-hmm. Does that have anything does that have anything to do with you not believing in God? The wheel spinning.
I have too much common sense and logic to believe in something I've never seen any proof of. My mind is like a computer. 1 + 1 = 2. I don't fantasize. I don't do whimsy. I know if I do drugs, I am not going to be at 100% to deal with life and my family, right? That's how my brain works. That is common sense, right?
That's not my question. That's not my question. Okay, so let me be clear. Maybe I'm not asking my question correctly, right?
Okay, I'm trying to understand.
Okay, so basically everything that you just gave us, right, as far as how you live your life to the fullness, right?
Yes.
Okay, so as a person who doesn't believe in God, right?
Yes.
Does you living your life in fullness and all the things that you practice, right? In terms of living your life in fullness, does it have anything to do with you not believing in God?
I would say yes. If I am understanding your question correctly, I would say yes. So if I'm understanding your question correctly, okay. Because the reason that
I can't hear anyone.
You can't hear us, Daryl? We can hear you. Can you hear us?
I don't think you may have to take him out.
I'm so sorry because I can't hear anything.
Oh, you may have to come back out and come back in.
We can hear you. Come back. Come back. Can he read lips?
Come back in.
Come back in.
Okay, so let me ask you. Okay, so all right, so if you say yes, that has something to do with the fact that you don't believe in God, right?
I'm sorry. Okay. So I'm trying to understand your question, right?
Mm-hmm.
I live the way I live. That includes not believing in a sky entity. And then people labeled me, oh, that's called an atheist. You get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying, but
so I don't give a fuck about a label. I don't even give a fuck about being called atheist. It's not something I wear like a badge, like, oh, I don't believe in God. I live the way I live. I have not seen a God. I am not going to blame good things that happen to me on a God. I'm not going to blame bad things that happen to me on God's will. I do not live that way, right? To me. So people told me, oh, wow, you know what they call that here on planet Earth? They call that atheist. Okay, call it what you want. I call it logic and common sense.
Okay.
If this has never done anything for me, I don't give a fuck how many books you give me on it that tells me the red cup heals and the red cup sends you to heaven. There's no book you're going to give me to convince me that this red cup heals and takes me to heaven. I'd have to see it.
If you got some sangria up in there, but my point was this.
Right sangria.
My point was this: if you living your life, but you're living your life to the fullness, right? And
absolutely.
You don't believe you don't believe in God, which is cool, right?
Right.
You take accountability for yourself. It's all about responsibility. So do you don't think that there are people who are out here who think just the same as you do, that also believe in God, meaning that they know that, okay, I believe in that there's a God, right? But I also believe that I'm going to take accountability for myself. I'm going to believe everything that you believe, everything. I'm not going to let this negative force come into my life. I'm not going to turn. You hit me, I'm being your ass. No, look, if you come in my life, I'm judging you right now. There are people who believe in God, right?
Right, but I don't, absolutely. But then they're hypocrites because the two can't coexist.
Why not?
You can't take full control of your life, right? You can't take full control of your life and say everything that happens to me is my decision. I am self-determined to make everything happen, right? I am going to be my own judge. I am not going to do this. I have a moral code, and then lean on, yeah, but God said. The two cannot coexist, and you are a hypocrite, and you don't believe in God as much as you say you do.
You see, you're looking at God. You're looking at which I understand, because that's normally how most religious people think. When they look at God, when people look at God, they look at God as somebody that, like you said before, they depend on God as a crutch, which most people do.
Right. I'm addressing their God. That's how they view God. That's how they deliver God to people. So I'm addressing their God, how they see God, how people say they see God, like God's will, God's favor, God's this, God's that. I'm using their definition, not mine. This is how people present God to you. Like when you tell them, oh my God, look at all those people dying from COVID. Well, it was God's will. Oh, look, such and such survived COVID. God's blessing. You know what I mean? So I'm using their definition, not mine. This is how people say God works.
Well,
I'm by their definition. So the two can't coexist. You can't be a self-determined person and believe in God at the same time. Then you don't really believe in God the way you say you do.
How you can't be a self-determined? So how do you justify all of these people who are self-determined, who are very successful in life, right? Who are very in terms of peace, in terms of finances, in terms of freedom, to go where they want to go, to do what they want to do, to travel when they want to travel. Like, how do you justify these people who are living this life and they say that they believe in God?
It's like the episode that we had about marriage vows, right? And love. Someone said, "Oh, love conquers all," and love. No. People are making the definition of love how they see fit, right? Communication conquers all, not love, right? But people are like, no, love conquers all. So they do the same thing with God. People cookie cut God to how they see fit. I read this book called Imagine There's No Heaven. And it literally explained how the richest preachers and pastors like T.D. Jakes,
they don't believe in heaven.
Right, Creflo Dollar and all those people, like they're not as religious as they lead you to believe, because you cannot serve two masters. It is impossible that your goal in life is to be a millionaire or billionaire from your congregation and you also believe in God. It is impossible. It's the best mind fuck ever, but it is impossible that your God is, I need to get this jet, I need to get this rose, I need to get my and believe in God at the same time. The two cannot coexist.
Why not?
You believing that?
Why the two? So you mean to tell me you can't believe in God and have riches?
No, no. If your goal, listen. Do you understand that the whole idea of God and religion comes from such a humble place, right? It's Jesus-like, right? Let's talk about religion. It's Jesus-like. He's in his sandals, sitting on dirt. You know what I mean? Jesus-like. Didn't he tear up a church because they were selling shit?
No, you know that's people's warped understanding of Jesus. Remember, Jesus, when he traveled, right? He had an accountant with him. Jesus was not a poor man. They make people so the way religion is passed down to people to make people poor. When you just made the statement about Creflo Dollar, and they don't believe in once you die you're going to heaven and all that kind of, or you going to, they don't believe in that kind of stuff.
I mean, they don't believe in any of that shit.
They teach it to the masses, like very wealthy, the wise people on the planet Earth. They don't believe in all that kind of. They don't believe in the heaven after you die and hell when you go. They don't believe.
I know they don't. Daryl, can you hear us now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, awesome. Welcome,
can you guys
Daryl.
Hear? Yes.
Excuse my social distancing look.
Yeah, I don't like that.
No worries, no worries. I got a whole list of people here who are social distancing and don't want to come on.
Joseph Wheeler.
Daryl, what would you like to add to the conversation if you've been listening?
Well, you know, I think that one reason, and really, I like to stay close to the premise. Does religion, can it stop you from living your best life? One of the reasons it doesn't even it's not even helpful to bring religion up so many times, because the moment that it's brought up, everyone comes from their different perception of what it is, what it means to them, and then everybody is so offended by it. Now, I grew up in the Catholic Church. I went to the Methodist Church. I'm a Muslim, but I never. What I always thought was that it is being used as a tool against people who really undergird the society. So you made a great point that, you know, there's 4,000 different named religions, and everyone believes that they're right. So the moment you introduce yourself into that thought process, or bring yourself into that, then everybody has to come from their vantage point. But I firmly believe that your best life is based on what you believe. You can call yourself an atheist, you can call yourself a Christian, you can call yourself whatever you want, but those are labels. But who you are basically is really what you do. What you do on a daily basis determines who you actually are. So you have, George Bush was a Christian, but they were bombing people. Saddam Hussein was a Muslim, but they were bombing people. Jeffrey Dahmer was a Christian, but he was killing people. That's what they call themselves. But your actions determine who and actually what you are. And I just wanted to say this, is that I deal with people, and I'm a Muslim, but I don't introduce myself, hi, I'm Daryl Muhammad, the Muslim. You know, what I do is when I'm introduced to somebody, I feel their energy. I feel their vibe. I feel what they're bringing off. And I recognize that if you're going to work with somebody, if you're going to the word I'm looking for is, if you're going to create something, make something, do business, act right, whatever you're going to do, it's going to come from a place that comes out of you. You are the God of your own reality. Now you may recognize some being, some person from the outside, but it's the principles on the inside that you use that determine what happens in your life. So that's how I am. So I can go into a room with agnostics, with Christians, with Muslims. It doesn't matter, because what are you putting on the table that's going to help move this situation forward? That's kind of how I look at it.
That's excellent. I agree with that. I agree with that point of view. That's absolutely excellent. It goes back to my point where it's like people will call themselves a certain thing and they don't even believe everything that entails that certain thing, right? Which is why we know hypocrites in all kinds of religions. And the first thing we say is, aren't you a Christian? Why are you X, Y, and Z? So that goes back to what I was saying, how people call themselves a certain thing and their attitude, their actions and everything is completely opposite. And at the end of the day, you are morally what you do daily. You are what you do daily, not what you call yourself.
It actually goes a little deeper than that, because
let's hear it.
We introduce ourselves with fraternities. We introduce ourselves with churches. I'm an elk. I'm a Christian. I'm a Q. I'm this. I'm that. We love putting a label on ourselves, but not understanding that every time you put another label on yourself, you're dividing yourself from. You're trying to make yourself exclusive in some club that you belong to, that you have a different set of rules for. So so you just introduce yourself as a human being, and then you go with the flow of the energy that's right there. Now I like your energy. I was checking your energy. You got force and you got power. and Mark, I like your energy, but the moment you introduce a philosophy into it, people defend the philosophy rather than go after the principle. Do you understand what I'm saying? The principle is, the best religion to me is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I go from there.
Yes, sir.
That's what I'm talking about. That is the best religion. That crosses all religions or non-religions.
Right. And that doesn't mean you let somebody disrespect you. It doesn't mean that, like you were saying something concerning we stay in relationships because this book says stay in relationships. We take abuses because some doctrine tells us to that we should take this abuse, and that's why you have to have that gauge in yourself. I'm not going to sit around and take a beating with somebody, whether it's verbally, whether it's physical or whatever, knowing that this is not the life that if I believe in a higher power that he chose for me, or two, that I want for myself. I may try to work out, I may try to see if we can come to a better agreement, but life is not to be lived like that. Life is to be designed by your choices. And sometimes you make a bad choice. So
absolutely. I want to read I'm seeing some comments. A lot of comments. Okay, I'll grab one. Joseph said, "How do I join? Confused looking at the screen." Mark, can you throw up the link? So
I'm gonna do it again right
Joseph, now. Joseph, look at the comments. The link will be there that you could click on.
I had to actually dial in. I had to actually go off and put it in the. I had to Google it, so I tried to press in.
Sarah said, some of the most intelligent people on earth believe in God. Many scientists believe in God because of things that have happened that simply can't be explained with any scientific explanation. I'd have to talk to one of them or hear them say that.
There are a lot of scientists that don't.
Yeah, because I know science and religion usually don't mix, but I'd have to hear a scientist say that he believes in God and why. Because again, like I said before, a lot of people call themselves certain things and they don't even follow what they're calling themselves. Sarah also says, and Jen, you can't lump everyone as these, oh, I love my Jesus and my church on Sunday because they believe in God. Trust, there's a difference. The majority of people who believe in God are those, my church on Sunday people. I know everybody's different. We could stamp, any conversation with not all, but what I can lump people into is that every religious person I have ever met has their own custom fit of that same religion. Like I could pull 5 Christians in a room and all 5 of them will have different versions of what God allows, what God said, what God don't want, what God did this, what Jesus said, what Jesus want, what Jesus don't want, what Jesus told them, what Jesus. So that I can say, every religious person I've ever met, and this was across the board. I've studied with Jehovah's Witnesses. I've studied with Baptists, Pentecostals. My family thinks they're Catholic. So I've studied with a lot of different people. And they all have different versions of that. Whatever religion they have, everybody has a different, whatever custom fit to their life, right? Or their quote unquote sins. So that I can say.
My bad. I was sitting into the watch party.
Okay. Carl, welcome.
Hi, Jen. Can you hear me?
Hi. Okay, Mark just posted the link again. If you want to come in, please do. All opinions are welcome. Carl, I don't know how much you heard so far, but what would you like to add to the conversation of can religion or belief in God hold you back from a fulfilling life?
Well, first of all, as Mark knows, which is why he asked me to come on, I am a serious believing Christian, and the question I thought was interesting: can religion or belief in God hold you back from a fulfilling life? It was almost a laughable question. I guess I don't know if Mark was trying to kind of goad people, but this idea that you cannot have a fulfilling life and be a Christian is a joke. It's an absolute joke and a total misunderstanding.
I answered the question, and I didn't say Christian. I said religion, but I also said Christian.
Okay. Fair enough. But I even it's good to bring that up, Jen, because I don't even see Christianity as a religion. I see it as a relationship and as a lifestyle. And we all have lifestyle choices we make, whether we believe in something or not. You see, and we all have boundaries and things we live by, whether we believe in God or not, whether we believe in Buddha or Muhammad or whatever, or nothing. We all believe in something, but somehow, and I'm going to speak from my point of view as a Christian, we get kind of pigeonholed into this idea that like you just said, there's different people, we kind of put on this custom fit. And you're right to a point. But I will tell you this, when it comes to who Christ is, you won't find Christians kind of wavering on that.
That's not true.
Even the same. Well, okay. So
you and Simeon is a Christian, and you're a Christian, but y'all have different views of who Jesus is.
Okay, so Simeon, I got your shirt on. Look at this, man. How convenient.
Oh.
So I almost wore my shirt too.
So don't make me have to take your shirt off, man. So I want to hear your different belief if I can hear, because I don't know what that would be, but I'm interested in hearing it.
I'm trying to see what part Mark is talking about.
He's saying he's talking about what we believe about Jesus.
Jesus. So let me ask you this, Carl. Do you believe that Jesus is God?
I believe that. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Simeon, do you believe that Jesus is God?
No, I believe that Jesus is the Son of God.
Okay, but
he's God the Son. Okay, so what are you? Are you a Christian?
Yes. Okay, I'm a Christian. So,
okay.
So let me explain.
Christian fight.
No.
It might be an issue of semantics. So let me just
right. So here it is for me, Carl. I believe that Jesus is the Son of God. I believe that God sent His Son Jesus for us, for the remission of our, and He died for the remission of our sins. So if I believe that, I believe in God, but I believe that Jesus is the Son of God. So that's where I stand on that. Now I know sometimes people say Jesus is Lord, Jesus is God. I understand all of that, and I have no qualms with that. But when I look at the word and I talk about when it talks about in the word how God sent his son for us, to take on our sins and bear our sins and our burdens. And that's why I say I believe that Jesus is the Son of God. So that's where I'm at with that.
Okay.
Now,
okay. I have a question. I have a question for you, and we
Yes,
can't.
sir.
I don't think we can really get into it right here on the air. But
Mhm.
no, I don't think so because I have the benefit of having a Bible right in front of me.
And I don't have my Bible written.
So that's
And we
not
got an
fair.
eight, and we got an eight, and we got
So I just have a
Hey.
question. I just have a
and
question.
there's an atheist above me.
That's okay. You know what? Let me tell you something. Man. It's okay. It's okay that you're an atheist. I don't have a problem with that. I think that you have a right to be an atheist. But what I will say though is that we're all like anything in life, including this. We are responsible for our choices, and that's a choice you're making. And as long as you're willing to hold that choice and you're strong in it, you should hold that choice. Now, I was going to ask you though, Simeon, read this book of John, the first chapter.
Okay.
Okay, and then we can have a talk about that later because I think that we're having basically an issue of semantics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's not an argument because you're basically saying the same thing that what I'm saying, but it's a semantics issue that I would love to have a discussion with you about, but not here because it's not the point. Okay.
No, I got you.
All right.
And I'm totally with you on that. And I would love to do that because, and this one thing, like Mark and I are brothers, and we have conversations about religion all the time. He's a Muslim, I'm a Christian, but that doesn't stop us from having conversations and still loving each other as brothers.
Right.
Not at all. And there's some things that he believed that I believe. There's some things that I believe that he believes. And I think that when it all comes down, when you talk about the semantics, I get that. There's a lot of things in the Bible that I'm still learning.
Right.
And there's things that when my coattail is full, I hear it and I'm like, oh wow, I didn't think about it that way.
Right.
So I'm gonna go read First John when I get to the house.
Yeah, the book of John, not First John. The book of John.
I'll read the book of John. Mm-hmm. I'll read the book of John because I think the problem is some people aren't willing to just have the conversation. Just like Jen, my girl, I love her. She's an atheist.
I love Jen. She's beautiful.
That's who she is. Hey,
I'm gonna argue with a Jen atheist looking like that. I can't say that. I'm a man first, dude.
It's atheists like Jen. It's atheists like Jen that throw Christians like us off the track.
I know.
Devil in the blue dress.
You can't be arguing with no Jen. Jen don't believe in God. I'm like, okay, Jen, if you say so, let's move on to something else.
I want to ask you guys a question. The Christians in the room. I want to ask you guys a question because I want to stay on the topic of can religion or belief in God hold you back from a fulfilling life? So let me ask you guys a question to my Christians. Do you believe in rules like honor thy mother and thy father?
Absolutely.
Do you believe in love thy enemy?
Yes.
Do you believe in turn the other cheek?
Well, I don't. What do you mean by turning the cheek? No. Let me go back. That was a bad answer. Let me put it to you like this. And you know what? Listen. Let me read exactly. All that Chicago came out, Mark.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey.
Let me go back though, because that's a good question she's asking. So in Luke 6. There's the part in Luke 6 where Jesus says to us that we are, and my aunt used to always talk about this, and that is love those who persecute you. Basically, love on people who hate on you, basically. And my aunt, who's from Chicago, my Auntie Betty, she was like the epitome of this. And she always would tell the story about how her husband who was a Christian, she caught her husband cheating on her early in their marriage. And she took a coconut cake over to the woman's house and gave it to her. And by her giving that cake to her supposed enemy who's sleeping with her husband, it is heaped guilt upon her head because here this woman is who she's wronging and she's doing something nice for her. And so in that spirit, I think that we are at different places in our journey where it takes a real level of maturity. And turning your cheek doesn't mean you let somebody beat you up. Because if you hit me with your fist, I'm gonna try to kick your ass. It's not that.
Hey, because we ain't no punk Christians.
What I mean by what I'm trying to say though is that I always say all the time when you see people, online, I'm digressing a bit, because you agree with me, I like you. Because you did something nice for me, I like you. And it's easy to love people who are doing something you like or doing something for you in your favor. But it's hard. It takes character and maturity to love people who don't love you. And that's the principle.
And pray for those.
I think it takes, but it could also be looked at to low self-esteem and a defeated.
No. That's not
no.
That's not where
that way.
Jen, no.
Remember, that's not. But remember, the key is to be happy and fulfilled. If someone is cheating on me, that's a horrible feeling. Why do I have to sit in that feeling and go bake a cake?
No. Listen to me, Jen. Listen to me. Now,
I heard.
Okay, I think you're drawing a false conclusion, because the end of the story is that the woman ended up apologizing to her, and she ended up staying with her husband for another 45 years, and she has an incredible legacy. Now, she made a mistake. I mean, she was cheated on. I get all the things you're saying. It's not that I don't understand it, but you're not looking at the legacy that came after that. I can tell you stories about people, I ain't gonna say their names on the air, that stayed with cheating spouses and they got past it. And they went on to build legacy in spite of that misstep. And people.
And it's usually the man that cheated, right?
It could be either way. I don't care who's the man or the woman.
But it's usually the man that cheats, right?
Oh, that's some BS right there.
Okay.
The women cheat.
Women do cheat. Sorry about that.
Women.
That's a whole nother
Y'all
show.
cheat too.
That's a whole nother show. Y'all just don't get caught. But women cheat. Okay?
In the stories was it mostly men or women?
I have to say,
the stories
in the stories I know, it's both. I'm just telling you the truth.
Okay.
I know it might conflict with your narrative, Jen, but I'm sorry. Women cheat, and they cheat a lot. A lot. I mean, men get caught more, but women cheat a lot more. In fact, if you go look at and I've done this, and I can send them to you later. There are surveys that show maybe a disparity of maybe 5 to 10% difference between men and women who cheat. It's very close.
You don't think that. So what's low self-esteem to you?
Well, okay.
What does that look like?
Okay, so low self-esteem is when you're letting people now. Okay, for example, like I'm not trying to say that you should put up with somebody cheating on you, but if you decide to leave, you leave out of a position of strength for yourself. You don't, and by the same token, you don't take it like let me just go back. When my aunt did that, she didn't do it out of a low self-esteem. That wasn't where she was coming from. It may look like that to you.
It was God. But I'm not trying to understand. It was God that told her, love thy enemy. So she went to bed.
She was walking. She saw the big picture in serving her husband and her family, bigger than the offense that her husband was doing at the time. And yes, that was anger.
Was it a ploy? Was it a ploy to get the mistress to feel guilty and leave her husband?
That's another thing. I think that you talk about it from being a ploy. It's not. See, you're using these terms that I think are not correct. And they are not endemic to the act. It may be how you see it, but I'm telling you that when you invest in something,
but is it what she did also how you see it?
No, I don't.
Aren't you also how you see it?
No, I don't see it that way. I don't.
I'm saying your opinion. No, your opinion of what your aunt did and why she did it. Aren't you saying? Aren't you? Isn't that how you see it?
No, I see basically her belief in God and forgiving her husband and forgiving the woman who did this to her. See, forgiveness is another big thing that people miss. Forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for you.
How so?
How so?
Yeah.
Well, I can give you testimony after testimony, and I can give you record in my own life. When people tell me that I know a bunch of people and I'm friendly with, it's because I can
see you.
Huh?
Oh yeah, that's me. That's me. No, I have an avatar because I don't wear clothes after 7. So.
Okay, gotcha.
So I'm just saying that listen, everybody has to live their lives their own way, but forgiveness is not for the other person; it's for you. because people who do not forgive carry that crap around in them and carry it around when they see it. I'm just telling you.
How do we know that?
How do I know that? I know that from my own life, and I know that from people who don't forgive, how mad they are, how angry
But
they are.
I don't forgive.
Huh?
I don't forgive.
Oh.
No. If you,
Well,
well, you know what? I just said it earlier. You need to do what's best
I have a question for you.
Forgiveness for me keeps me free.
I have a question for you.
And I'll probably.
But I'm free as well, Carl.
Well, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking about me.
I wrote about this actually in school, and the name of the paper was called "Forgiveness for Selfish Reasons." And there's a reason why you want to forgive, and it doesn't have anything to do with the person that you're forgiving. It has more to do with the fact that you don't want to necessarily be carrying around a burden that you can't resolve, right? You're basically carrying around, like, there's people who haven't forgiven people who are dead in the ground. There's people who haven't forgiven any people who are in jail and everything else. And that person's not thinking about you anymore, but you still are focused and burdened by that person. So they still could have a tremendous amount of control over your life, right? So you want to forgive them, not to free them, but to free yourself from that burden, not for anything else. And it doesn't mean that you have to forget anything. Right? You still can hold them accountable for everything that they did to you, but you just don't want to basically hold them into you don't want to hold that connection to them by saying, I need to hate you in order for me to continue to live my life.
I have 2 points.
And Mark, can I just add one thing to what he's saying? Thank you, Matt. The thing about it is that just because you forgive them doesn't mean you restore them to their original position in your life. It doesn't mean that you bring them back into the same position. It just means that you release.
You do know that you can also not forgive and cut people off and not carry it with you, right? You do know that's a possibility.
I don't do that. Jen, what I'm saying to you is that you need to do what's best for you.
Yeah,
and I can tell you.
I don't want to send the message. I don't want to send the message that forgiving and baking your husband's mistress a cake is a good thing either, because God said, you know what I mean?
What I'm saying to you, Jen, how old are you, Jen?
I'm 46, sir.
Okay, my aunt lived to be 90, and she left an incredible legacy that reverberates through not just our family, but through our community, okay? And so it may not be good for you, but she was smart enough to see the big picture. You don't have to agree with it, and I'm not trying to say that she had to do that. I'm sure she would have had a legacy if she not done that. But I'm telling you that this lifestyle of consistency over time left a legacy that reverberates in a legacy of in her family.
So let me ask you, Carl.
So I'm just, and she was married for like 55 years, which is incredible. And they had an incredible marriage.
There are people who are married for decades and a guy doesn't cheat and the woman doesn't.
You don't know that. You don't know that.
I just want to put that out.
I have a question.
What people been through? You don't have no idea.
Hey, Carl, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So my question is: so you said you believe in loving your enemies, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you.
But the love of the enemy is more of an altruistic human love, not love like I love you with my life and I'm gonna cut my left arm off for you. It's more of an altruistic human love that you have for humankind.
Okay, so if you believe according to, because as a Christian you believe, because the Bible teaches to love your enemy. Mm-hmm. So if you believe that, right? So when God, you as a Christian, you believe in the Bible. So according to the Bible, God destroyed the planet Earth the first time, right?
Right.
So how come God didn't just forgive and love his enemies then? Was he showing love or was he showing forgiveness when he killed all of those? Like he killed men, women, and children. Was he showing love and forgiveness there?
You know what? Now this is something.
Are you questioning God?
No, this is something that and I've been in your thread talking about this before, and I think I touched on it before. I am not going to get on here and try to defend or explain something that is really, this is way, I just can't do it here. I just can't do it. I can't do it. I'm willing to talk about what I believe and why I believe it and how it impacts my life. But in terms of theology and that kind of thing, it's not something that I can just easily explain to the point where you get satisfied. And I know that, Mark. You're for a long time, and I know that.
Why is it that this is where Christians always quit? When you ask them whether God did something that they do, right?
Right.
Because God said forgive, but God is not a forgiving God. And as soon as you're questioned, that's where Christians quit. Like,
No. Okay. Jen, do you want to answer my question? Do you want to answer my question? You want to answer my question? I'll give it to you if you want it. Here's my answer. I'm not.
The question that Mark asked.
Jen, let me answer your question.
Not my question. It's not my question.
You asked the question. I'm answering your question right now. Are you not answering the question? Are you asking me a question right now or not? You are.
I want you to answer Mark's question. Then you can answer mine.
No. You said that Christians quit. Is that what you're saying? Yes or no?
Yeah, you're quitting. This is where y'all always quit. This
are you saying that, Jen, right now, that Christians quit? Yes or no?
I'm saying you're quitting.
Okay, so good. So let me deal with that you're saying. I want to deal with what you're saying right now. Let me.
I can't talk about it no more. Tell me why your God didn't forgive, but he tells you to forgive.
No, I'm just saying to you, I'm Jen, listen, let me just deal with your question of quitting, which, by the way, I think you're the best. I love watching you and Mark every single day. I am not going to get into this.
We love you too, Carl.
I am not going to get into this theological debate. Because in my mind, just by the fact that you say Christians always quit, it tells me that your agenda is to make it to kind of fit into a box to gird me and answer the question.
I'm not. Y'all always quit. I want somebody to say.
Well, I'm not. Okay, can I answer your question about quitting?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So here's the deal. In my mind, it's not quitting. In my mind is that, and I'd be more than happy to have the conversation with Mark offline. I have a freaking phone call with you in a conversation offline, but this is just not the forum for that. And the other thing,
we have to convert.
Let me finish the other point. The other point is,
but it's the forum to tell us how forgiveness works.
I have no problem with the question. I'm telling y'all now, I have no problem with the question. Ask me the question.
Okay, ask Matt the question.
Matt, Mark, ask him the question, por favor.
Okay, so Matt.
You know what? I gotta make a quick phone. Can I come back?
Yeah, definitely. So Matt.
Sure, Carl, we'll be here.
You may want to log him off.
So, mute his mic or log him off?
Log him off because it's up to you. Hey, Matt.
I could.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to keep him on, Jen? So here's the question, right?
Well, now it's too late.
So you're a Christian, right? Let me just I don't want to make no assumptions.
Well, okay. Here's the thing. I consider myself to be a Christian.
Okay.
But I know that I know a lot of Christians probably don't consider me to be a Christian.
Okay, cool. So according to the Bible, right? So you believe in the Bible.
I believe the Bible exists. It doesn't mean that I believe it. I don't believe it is the unadulterated word of God.
Okay, cool. Okay, so so cool. Let me ask you this. So according to the Bible, right? And you say, first of all, before we get into this discussion, do you believe that you should love your enemies?
I believe that you should love everybody, and that means that's not exclusive. So yeah, I believe you should love everybody.
Cool. All right. So here's my question. So because you say you should love your enemies, I already heard your point in terms of forgiveness. You believe that you should forgive people who mistreat you and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So according to the Bible, right? God has always killed his enemies. Mm-hmm. He even destroyed, according to the Bible, he even destroyed the entire planet Earth, meaning he killed men, women, and children. Is that a God that forgives his enemies? Is that a God? Basically, is that a God that forgives his enemies?
Okay, well, if you separate the Old Testament and the New Testament, right? If you're using that, and again, I don't usually like these kinds of discussions, particularly because of the fact that they're self-referential, right? It's pretending that basically the Christian theology is basically the reference by which we should basically measure all religion. But I'll stick with that for the second, okay? But the reality is that yes, the God Jehovah, right? The Old Testament God was not a forgiving God, right? He was also very jealous, right? So he did. When he ordered the children of Israel to kill the enemies, he ordered them to slaughter them, every man, woman, child, and animal. So it wasn't just that he wasn't forgiving, he was merciless, right? But again, he was also a reflection of the people that wrote about him. And that most of those people that wrote about him basically were writing about him in captivity in Babylon, which was 400 years after the events that they were writing about, right? So they were basically, basically slave memoirs, right? So imagine what the people who were writing in slavery here in America would have been writing about their 400-year past, okay? About what their God would have been telling them to do to their enemies, right? So that's the reason why I don't like to necessarily think about it as being any kind of a real reference. So that's what you were dealing with as far as talking about the God that is described in the Bible, right? I'll just wrap it up, and I promise I won't take that long. But then when you talk about the New Testament is all about basically Jesus, right? And his mission to try to basically simplify the idea of what God really is, right? And his whole mission was to talk about the other side of God, which is the God of love, right? All the 10 Commandments didn't work. They turned it into 475 Levitical laws that basically constrained the people, separated them from God, made it so that they could not be in communication with their own God. So basically he came and said, hey, look, I'm going to make it simple. Love one another. That's all you got to do if you want to be in commune with God. Love one another. That ridiculously simple idea is what's the formulation of what Christianity should be at its core. Okay, so if you're doing love one another, then you really shouldn't break any of the other 10 commandments. You shouldn't be able to have any problem with forgiving people, even if they've done wrong by you. You should be able to sacrifice yourself for them as the example of Jesus on the cross. Right?
Can I ask a question?
So again, my point is that yes, I do believe, right, that same God, okay, who basically decided that, hey, you know what, I'm going to, following the story of the Bible, right, that I'm going to make myself flesh by being born into the form of Jesus so that I can bring myself back into communion with my people on earth and forgive them of their sins through the sacrifice that I make through my person visaged by the Son, Jesus. That's forgiven.
But doesn't the Bible say that he's supposed to destroy the earth again with fire?
Well, not destroy the earth, but yeah, destroy people, the sinful people.
So doesn't the Bible say that he's God? He doesn't change.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, he's supposed to be timeless, right? So that's kind of hard. Omnipotence is a hard thing to deal with, right? So how could you change if time doesn't exist for you?
Okay, so what you said that he changed. He changed from the Old Testament to the New Testament.
No, and it's not him changing, right? It's our understanding of him, right? Because basically the people who wrote about him in the Old Testament were not the same people that wrote the New Testament, right? They were not experiencing God in the same way. Remember, the people who wrote the New Testament largely were writing again 300 years later at the Council of Nicaea, pulling together books telling a story about a guy who was wandering around the wilderness. So essentially, that's the reference that you're talking about. That's the thing that makes it seem changeable. But if you believe the story, if you believe the narrative, right, then that's what you have to believe. You have to believe that God did decide, right, that basically he wanted to be in commune with man. He wanted to bring man back into alignment with him, and he did so by forgiving them of their sins. He could not look upon their sins, so he had to make a sacrifice through Jesus, his son, and he did that himself.
But according to your belief, right? According to what you believe, you don't believe that it's God, actually, but you believe that it's those who wrote the Bible, just giving their interpretation of what they believe that God is saying. Because you said that, right? So it's not basically what you're saying is that, well, God is not saying this, but those people who interpret the Bible or misinterpret the Bible, these are the people who are actually saying it. So basically, what you said is that you don't believe in the Bible.
No, it's not that I don't believe in the Bible. Like, I believe in its historic value. I believe that it is an expression of those people's basically their basic beliefs. Mm-hmm. I believe that they understood the world in a certain way that that is valuable to us to understand, right? But I don't believe necessarily that we can take it as a document that we should live according to, right? Because basically, if we tried to do that, then basically, we couldn't. There's all kinds of restrictions we couldn't do, right? That we know about the Levitical laws that we could not do, right? That are silly now in this day, right? But at the same time, there are some other values, some basic universal values that are shared throughout almost all of human belief, right? and those values are pretty much understood and can be shared. And that's the reason why I say that. The reason why I consider myself to be a Christian is not because of the fact that I believe the Bible is unerring in its depiction of the actual history, right? That Adam was, lived 6,000 years ago, and that they were able to fit all of creation in a boat. That's not the reason why I consider myself to be a Christian. The reason why I consider myself to be a Christian is because I believe in the message that was taught by Christ.
Well, according to what you believe, if you believe that it's not a actual book that was inspired by God, was just written by some men. So how
I didn't say it wasn't inspired by God. I didn't say it wasn't inspired by God.
Okay, let's just say that the book is inspired by God, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that goes back to the point. If you believe that this book is inspired by God, basically what you're saying is that God doesn't know what He wants. Period.
No, what I'm saying is that we can't possibly know what God wants. That's the distinction.
You said
we can't possibly know what God wants. And the fact of the matter is that everything that any interpretation that we could possibly provide, and especially in the written form, especially in the ancient written form, would be basically through that vessel, that flawed vessel of humanity.
Okay, right. Let me ask you this, Matt. So basically, you said that we can't possibly know what God wants, right?
Right.
So does He want us to submit to Him?
Well, I mean, again, if He really wanted us to submit to Him, I don't think He would have given us free will.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
I don't think He would have given us free will if He really wanted us to submit to Him.
Oh, so,
I mean, why give us free will if you want them to submit to you? I think what He wants us to do, ultimately, if you believe the conceit of the Bible, is that He would want you to be chosen. He wants to be preferred. He wants you to have the free choice and choose Him.
Okay. So you do know what He wants.
To me,
What?
it sounds like sport to me.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
it sounds like complete human thinking. When you look at sports, it's always one team against the other, which tells me, yes, a man wrote the Bible. Men wrote the Bible. Let's have this evil team. Let's have the Red Sox and the Yankees. Let's have the Dallas Cowboys and the Giants. And let's just pick these two teams together. It sounds like sport to me. It doesn't sound whimsy or entity-like. It sounds very human in nature. I'm going to make evil and good and see who you guys choose. It sounds like sport to me. I've always had an issue.
I agree with you in that respect, because they've always kind of, especially when you go back and look at some of the earlier parables in the Old Testament, a lot of them were depicted like that, where basically it was literally the devil and God basically sitting there talking about Job and basically making a competition of how they could torture Job and who he would basically serve. Right. So, I mean, that's what you're describing is exactly it. But that's also the nature of the people who were writing the stories. Right. That's how they basically were able to conceive and understand the conflict of what they could, of the deities that they were imagining. Right. So, but if you conceive of a God, right, and I'm just using the term God, but if you conceive of a higher power, or you conceive of a creator, right, that has absolutely no vested interest in anything other than the fact that your creation, right, and beyond that, that's it. He created you, and you can do whatever you want to, right? Then it's a whole lot harder to start to basically to think all these other things that people have used to try to constrain Him to meet our needs, our personal needs, and our understandings. Right? It's like, he should be a person. He should be a person. He should be a he. He should be this. He should be that.
So let me ask you a question, Matt. With the way humanity has always been, right? The idea of sports comes from men. Men are competitive, right? How can you trust, right, literature that came from the hands of men, even if they thought some God spoke to them? Like, how could you take it seriously when men of flesh and blood penned these stories? How could you take it seriously? Like, why would you believe them? It's kind of like if I wrote a book today, why would people believe me 20 years from now? Who am I? I'm just a person. I'm going to die like they died.
Well, I mean, it's really not. It depends on what you consider to be taking it seriously. I take a lot of things that I read seriously because they're well-learned thought. Okay, but I don't take it as being the word of God. Right? just because of the fact that something sounds great, right? I mean, I could take plenty of literature. James Baldwin could just as easily, okay, to me, be evoking the spirit of God in some of his literature, right? But at the same time, I don't take it as the word of God. Same thing is that basically when you talk about how the words that are that are just in terms of like the news and things like that, everything is interpreted through the filter that it basically that it reaches us. So no, I can't say that you would take it seriously, but you want to take knowledge from it. And I still would take knowledge from anything, any of those, any of the books. I would take knowledge from all of them. And part of the reason why, and this is the reason why I say people wouldn't consider me to be a Christian, is because of the fact that in my mind, even our yearning, right, the fact that every group of people on this planet, right, has this inner desire, okay, to describe their creation, okay, in some personified form. I'm talking about groups. I'm talking about groups, but I made that comment. I made the comment about atheism being a faith-based belief system for you, Jen. Oh. But because an absence of a deity is also a faith-based belief also.
So I got a question for Matt. I need to ask Matt. You say you were a Christian, right?
Okay. I said
I'm saying because in the Bible. Now, if anyone who ever read the Bible from Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you're not going to find the word Christian in any of those chapters or any of those.
They weren't Christians. They weren't called Christians until basically.
But you're not going to find the word Christian until you get to the book of Acts, which is right. I think it's the 11th chapter, 26th verse, something like that. I'm not for sure, but it is in the book of Acts. So. But they would never call Christians, and Jesus never considered himself a Christian because there's nowhere in a book you can find a religion given to him that he himself had named after him being considered to be the Christ. Nor you're not going to find any religion in the Old Testament. So if you can call yourself that but don't believe in a book, isn't that opposing views or conflict with what you're standing for?
No, because essentially, I did describe it. Maybe you didn't catch it, but I did explain the reason why I consider myself to be a Christian is because I do believe in the teachings of Christ. I believe in what he was actually teaching, not necessarily what the Council of Nicaea decided to assign to him, right? To ascribe to him what became the Catholic Church. And when I say Catholic, I'm not talking about the Vatican. I'm talking about the Catholic, the worldwide Christian church that was determined the Council of Nicaea. What I'm talking about is the fact that basically what he actually taught, the message that he actually taught, I do agree with. The idea of universality, the idea of love.
Matt, so I believe in everything that Khalid Muhammad said. Is it like, are you calling yourself Christian? Like
Khalid Muhammad.
I'm Khalid Muhammad's daughter. I'm a Khalidist.
Right, it's Khalid.
Is that the same Khalid? Is that the same thing?
No, I don't think it's necessarily the same thing.
How's it different?
I'll tell you how, at least in my mind, how it's different. And it's probably splitting hairs a little bit. But for me, the reason why it's a little different is because of the fact that I don't necessarily deify this person. Okay, I don't believe, but I also don't disagree with the idea that he might have been the Son of God, if that makes sense. In other words,
he never called himself that, though.
I don't have any argument with anybody who believed that he was.
But he never called himself the Son of God. That's nowhere in the Bible. You're not going to find in any words Jesus' context of him saying he's the Son of God in the sense that he's physically from God, but he's the spiritual son. It tells you in the book of Romans now, it said that he was declared to be the seed of David according to the flesh now. And hold on. And in the book of Matthew, in the first chapter, the genealogy of Jesus is given, and the bloodline ends with Joseph, which is declared to be the husband of Mary. So he can be the spiritual son, because in the book of Romans, it tells you that he was declared to be the son of the seed of David according to the flesh, but declared to be the Son of God according to the power of spirit and holiness by resurrection. So he never said that he was the physical son, but he was the manifestation of the reality of what God looked like in man on earth, but not in the sense that God came down from heaven, broke his own law for fornication, fornicated with Mary, got her pregnant. You need sperm to come on the planet. That's a fact. So you mean to tell me that God come down in human form, made him have incest or sex with his own creation, his daughter, because Mary would be his daughter if Jesus is the son, right? That would make her the brother or the sister, right? So you telling me all this took place, but then and you supposed to subscribe to these teachings as though this is the reality of what we are supposed to be living in.
And they were referred as saints, by the way.
Yeah. Well, here's the problem, and this is the reason why I get back to the whole self-referential thing. You know, basically, I disagree with the idea of using the Bible to defend the Bible, right? Basically, I mean, because ultimately everything you believe in, everything you described in the Bible or in the Word, the earliest written accounts of what anything that Jesus said were 70 years after he died. The earliest. Okay, so that means that basically that nobody was probably alive who had heard anything he had ever said. So it's very difficult to use that to describe what he ever said he was and who he was to the people who were around him. All we can go by is the fact that the people who did know him and what they said they believed he said he was. And again, I don't have a problem with that. If they've decided that, hey, you know what, after the fact, we were spending time with the Son of God. And I really can't argue against that. You know what I mean? And the reason why is because I can't prove they're wrong. And I don't choose to prove they're wrong. So that's kind of to back to your point, Jen. I can't prove that. That's the reason why I say, okay, well, I can live with that.
Well, what about religions? What about religions that were around way before Christianity? How do you explain that? Like, what made Christianity like this is it? And for us, you know what I mean? Like, what about religions before Christianity? Christianity is not that old in comparison to the other religions. What made this one the you know what I mean, the alpha and the omega of all the gods and everything?
There's two things that were going on, and I'm sorry if you guys hear me smacking, I'm eating dinner. But there were two things that were going on at the same time. One of them is, you know, you had the largest empire in the world, right? Rome at the time, right? Who basically controlled most of what was considered to be major thought in that part of the world, that region of the world. Okay, when Constantine decided that it was going to be basically on his deathbed, that Christianity was going to be the religion of Rome. Okay, that basically put him into effect the reason why most of the Western world adopted Christianity, which was basically an outlawed religion before that time. So but now that's the I guess you want to call it the archaeological reason for why it happened, right? But then there's also a spiritual reason why you might guess that it might happen. Because if you also think about the fact that here's a religion that was basically outlawed by the largest superpower of the time, okay, where the people were hunted, they were killed in stadiums, and you know, it came out of the smallest corner of the empire at the time, and yet it went on to become now the largest religion in the world, right? So you can take whatever message you want from that, right? You can take the same message from the children of Israel that, you know, here's a group of people who, for, you know, at least 12 different empires tried to eradicate them.
But you know it became the largest religion based on bloodshed and murder. Now you can't just say it became the largest religion because all of a sudden everybody became Christ-like. No, sir.
I wasn't qualifying.
Not that you were. Not that you were. I'm not saying that you were. I'm saying that many people believe that Christianity became a dominant religion on earth based on people's acceptance of it, when in fact that it was used to kill and murder and maim and destroy most indigenous cultures based on European belief. This is what Europeans have believed. Now, remember, Africa is a whole different reality when it came to religion.
Be careful of the pretense now that every other religion doesn't have the same blood on their hands, right? Because Islam came in the same way.
No, that's a negative on that one.
That's how they united the tribes. That's the reason why Muhammad took power. He was a warrior.
No, sir. If you read European writings, yeah, you could take that version. But if you have not, if you have not read the version, if you have not read any writings from those who lived in that era, then you can say things like that because that's how the Europeans wrote it. Just like they write about us, and they make us look bad. Their job is to make other people look bad. So you can't say anything about that.
If you read the Persian accounts, if you read the accounts of written by Europeans, yes, sir. I read them. I got the book in front of me. I got books in front of me right now on all that you just said, and all written by Europeans. All I'm saying is that basically, to me, it's a very limiting thought to think that basically that the European whites are the only people that are capable of atrocities. And to me, that's actually a supremacist thought.
History recorded them as being responsible for atrocity. The majority, 9/10 of the population of the planet Earth was dominated by Caucasian people. Let's just be honest. Everywhere you went, Caucasian people went into every indigenous culture. I mean, you're not going to find historically Chinese people traveling to the Western Hemisphere to conquer the Indians and then going to Africa and enslave. You're not going to find that. That's just not a reality. The white man has been known to create bloodshed and murder on the earth. That's a fact. Even they say themselves.
Genghis Khan killed so many people in his side.
But Genghis Khan kept among his own people. Genghis Khan didn't invade Genghis Khan didn't invade Africa. You're not going to find a historical record of Genghis Khan going into Africa.
Everywhere else, he changed the temperature of the planet, bro.
He didn't come onto the Western Hemisphere. The Vikings was the first to come over here, and the Vikings was white. They came into the Western Hemisphere. Genghis Khan didn't go into Africa. Genghis Khan went into certain parts of Asia.
That's what I'm talking about. You only talking about Africa, and I'm saying that basically that if you're just talking about Africa, then you're really not talking about world history. Yes, everybody is just as capable, and historically, Egypt was not an empire.
So why is the white man in power? Why is the white man in power then? Why is he the one that's dominating and ruling the planet? Why is his culture the most dominant culture on the planet? Why do every country want to be like America then if the white people did not travel the earth to conquer the planet Earth and rule the people under white supremacy?
You do understand in the history of humankind that this is just a blip on the screen. It's the reason why the Chinese understand that themselves to be a world power, even though that they are not necessarily now.
Before they became a world power, the white man conquered China for a while. Did he not conquer China? And did not Mao Zedong kick him out?
For a while, but the Chinese understand themselves to be a world empire for 6,000 years uninterrupted. That's the reason why.
They were a world power for 6,000 years.
Yeah, because you don't believe in Muhammad and you don't believe in Christ, so y'all are both atheists with each other.
Well, I'm not an atheist. I never said I was an atheist.
No, you're an atheist to his God because you don't believe in his God.
No, I do believe in God, but I don't think that people the picture that people paint of God, that's man's depiction. You can't. I mean, you just got to be real. I mean, atheists believe in God, so everybody believe in God. They just don't call him by what we want to call him. You believe in God. No, because if you driving in your car and your brakes go bad and you on the expressway, you calling on some power to save you. So you can say you don't believe, but you're gonna call on some power.
I don't.
Yes, you do. If you walking down the street at nighttime and a man come up to you with a gun and put the gun to your head and told you he's gonna shoot you finna call on God.
Excuse me, sir. Born and raised in the South Bronx, I've had a couple of near-death experiences. I've never called on God. You know why? Because humans die. Humans die. You know
what they say? Pride go up before destruction and heart to spare before a fall. Admit that you called on God.
Pride. You're using pride to put your belief on me. If I don't believe in something, you can't force me to believe in it. Like you can't force it because that's what you would do. You call on God. You can't put that on somebody. People are born. They live and they die. Like every.
So who did you call on to save your life? Then who did you call on?
I called on nobody. I said, "This is it. This is it."
So you accepted death in that moment.
It happens. It happens. People are born, they live, they die. Roaches are born, they live, they die. Tigers are born, they live, they die.
But tigers don't have logic. We're not talking about animals.
Yeah, but you know how many people die with God on their lips? God, like that's just a good word. People are born.
So you mean to tell me every near-death experience you have never ever in your life since you've been on this planet called on a power greater than yourself?
I was religious up until my early 20s. Oh yeah, prior to that, I used to call on God for help. But no, once I hit my early 20s, I was like, oh, this is bullshit. So no, you can't tell me.
So you was Paul in reverse then.
Say again?
I said you was Paul in reverse then. You had a different epiphany, huh?
I just had logic. I was like, why do people keep talking about this thing that doesn't exist? There's no proof of it. Like, it's just 1 + 1 = 2 for me. Like, people, you know you're gonna die, right? And God isn't gonna stop it, right? You do know.
He can.
No, he can't. Once your body gives, your body's gonna give. That's it. I don't care how hard you.
After going through near-death experiences, you kind of get used to it. You get prone to it, lack of a better term.
Welcome, Marvin.
Never called on God. That's hard to believe, though. But I feel you.
It's not hard to believe.
I don't think
you believe it. It's. I mean, it's hard to believe if you're a believer. I do understand that point of view, but you have to think: people are born, they die, and nothing's going to save you at the end. You are going to die with God on your lips, but you will die. You will die. Whether it's
I don't know no human being that had a near-death experience that didn't call on some power. Whether it was God, Allah, Jesus, whoever, you called on somebody to save your life in that moment.
The difference is, though, is the expectation. I mean, you're right that there are a lot of people actually will do that out of habit. You know, just because of the fact that that's an exclamation that you used to hear and say, "Oh my God," it's an exclamation. But how many of those people really believe that somebody's going to actually come and intervene on their behalf? That's the question. That's so, I mean, in other words, there's a lot of people who basically say, oh my God, in church, and don't have any belief at all either. So just because somebody says it doesn't mean they believe it.
I mean, that's true. At the same time, though, if you like I said, you driving on the expressway and your brakes give out, and all of a sudden you can't stop, and you don't want to die. I don't know no human being who's going to instantly accept death in that moment. If you crash, you die. But the reality of it is, in that moment, no human being is going to accept death in that given moment because they want to survive. The first thing human instinct is to survive. That's the first thing. So you're going to try your best to swerve, whatever, but you're going to call on somebody or some help. You're going to pray. You're going to do something to help to get that car to stop. That's a reality.
I know for me, it's going to be a curse word first, probably.
I think what would be on my mind is, oh shit, my kids. But I'm not gonna be like, God save me because God doesn't work that way.
I'm gonna tell you right now, as a former cab driver, as a former taxi driver, I've had some close calls. So it's like, after a while, I kind of got prone to it, lack of a better term. But I think the last time that I almost got to an accident, it was like if it happens, it happens. It sounds crazy, but it happens after going through it so many damn times.
So you embrace death as it is, huh?
Huh?
Jason made a great point. Jason Tomasovich said, as long as people fear death, there will always be people who believe in God. That's a fact, Jack.
And I somewhat agree with it. Somewhat.
Disagree.
Somewhat.
I totally agree.
I somewhat agree with that.
Because that's your fear. If you're afraid to die, you're gonna be like, God help me, I don't want to die, right? But if you know,
it's not afraid of dying. It's just human instinct. Human nature is to survive. Bottom line, period. Just like a roach, when a light come on, their instinct is to survive. So they're going to move and scurry along to get away from what's coming because they don't want to die. That's human instinct. No human being is going to accept death unless they just like Tupac and they just got that death mentality.
What about all the slaves who knew they were going to their death, but they would rather die than to be slaves, or they would rather kill me, they would rather die to be slaves. So how do you justify that?
That's a different perspective. Like again, unless you're in a situation like that where death is the only out, then yeah, I understand that. But in today's time, modern civilization, if no human being is ready or prepared to die unless they're down for a principle, they're down to defend their family, they're down for a cause, not just your brake slip. You just going to accept the reality of the fact that you're about to die. No, sir. You're going to try your best to swerve and try to stop the car from crashing.
Of course you are, but you're talking about something different. You're talking about death is coming and all of a sudden God becomes real to you. That's ridiculous. Unless you're religious, because you always had that belief. But if my car is like, if I'm losing control of my car, I'm thinking, let me swerve to get it right. And if I see death is coming, I'm thinking about, oh shit, I'm not gonna see my kids, or this is gonna be hard on my kids. I'm not thinking God save. God is gonna be the last one on my mind. The last.
You don't have to scream out God, but in your heart, your mind, your soul, you are praying. Now you making some type of supplication. Now you're not gonna sit back and say, "Oh, well, this is my time to go." No.
Yeah.
I agree. Religious people will be thinking that. Absolutely.
I'm not religious, but I'm not religious. I'm just stating the fact.
Or believers, or whoever you believe in. You could believe in the sun. You're gonna be like, "Oh, sun!" Like you believe in something can intervene.
I could
Like
agree.
whatever you believe in.
I agree with Hassan's last statement, but at the same time, when I'm nervous, it gets worse. So I do whatever I can to just stay calm within that moment.
So you don't believe there's your soul? Where you think your soul go when you die?
Question for me?
Yeah.
I believe once you're dead, that's it.
So do you believe in the soul?
Say again?
Do you believe in the soul, the spirit,
I believe whatever word you want to call it, I believe something is keeping us alive. I believe it's energy. And I think energy transcends. No, I don't think after I leave this body, I'm going to go and drink a latte in heaven at Heaven Starbucks. No, I don't. I don't think I'm going to be in Heaven Starbucks sipping on a latte.
You believe in reincarnation?
Do I?
You believe in reincarnation?
Kind of, sort of.
I don't.
Kind of, sort of.
How you say you don't believe in God? If you believe in that, and you come on now. So you believe in? And okay, it's either you do or you don't.
I don't. But God has nothing to do with reincarnation.
But okay.
God is not going to do reincarnation. Remember, God, He either kills you, or you go to heaven or to hell, or your soul goes to limbo. Those are God's rules. Like
there's no heaven or hell. I'm just asking the question. There's no heaven or hell. That's true. Once you did, you did. That's it. Nobody came back and said there was a heaven or hell. That's a fact. I'm just saying, do you believe in the spirit?
What do you think happens when you die, Rassam?
I just want to see where you was at.
No, I know, but where do you think you go when you die?
You return back to the source on which you came. Like you said, energy. I mean, in terms of what we're taught, you return back to the source that you came from. I mean, you had to be created. It's not that you. So you believe in what they call evolution in terms of man just descended from monkey or ape or gorilla?
No, that's the most ridiculous thing ever. That's another myth. When someone hears you don't believe in God, they automatically think that we think you come from monkeys.
No, I'm asking you. Do you? That's what you believe?
No, sir. I've never believed that.
No, she believes in the original black man, bro.
But the original black man is God, so how does she not believe in God?
One second.
Oh, he just went Muslim on me. He just went Muslim on me. You know how people get a Jesus piece? I'm gonna get a Khalid Muhammad piece. She call him Khalid. I'm gonna get a piece. Like people get Jesus, I'm gonna get a piece. Okay, so Matt Bax, that was amazing. I get it. So I want everyone to comment on. Let's go way back to the topic, right? And I want you guys to leave like with your final thoughts on the topic. Can religion or belief in God hold you back from a fulfilling life because it keeps you held down in a lot of toxic situations and kills your self-determinism? Do you think belief in religion or God can hold the majority of the people back? I'm not talking about how much you guys accomplish, believe in God, but generally, religion generally. What do you think about that? Before we break
religion, I believe it can, because I feel like depending on which one, I feel like there's a lot of restrictions that conflict with your personal belief, I personally believe God and religion are completely different, but that's a whole different topic. I mean, I didn't catch the whole beginning of this live, but I believe it could hold you back some way, shape, or form.
I agree with Rodriguez. I agree with you, Ed.
Okay, Rastan, you?
No, I agree with Ed. Ed, I mean, he right. It could hold you back depending upon how you approach it, man. But as far as a belief in God, I don't think a belief in God could hold you back. I just think that you just got to move out and believe that He got your back, and you're gonna make something happen for yourself or whoever. You know, but I know religion has a restraint on it. Yeah, I believe that.
Okay, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. I think generally, I agree that religion or a belief in God can possibly hold you back. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion in any way. I also don't believe that just because of the fact that you don't believe in that, it's a foregone conclusion that you live free and you have a free mind. I think a lot of people basically make that mistake that the two are opposites, and I don't believe they are. I think that basically there's a lot of people who have a free mind who also believe in a higher power.
Okay. Mark?
I agree with what Matt said. I think it's also, just to add to it, I think it's also dependent on the individual. The power that the individual possesses. Because you can be religious, you can be atheist, whatever. This is how you move it.
Or spiritual.
Well, this was absolutely amazing. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, nobody got hurt.
Can I say one thing before we go, Jen?
Yes.
If you all can do us a big favor, two things. I mean, I'm sure you'll talk about the YouTube, but if you all could just do a watch party with this right here on your Facebook, that'd be great for us.
All
right.
Thank you.
Okay.
You gonna get paid?
Yeah.
All right.
Your reward is in heaven.
Oh my God. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being on the block with Jen. This was amazing. Even though we had different opinions, we all love each other and it's all good. Thank you so much. And keep joining our panel, por favor. You can't do it without.
Jen, buena vibras para ti.
Peace out.
All right.
Buena vibra.
I speak American. Later.
Later. Bye.